Welcome to RankLens. Today, we count down the top 10 A24 horror movies. A24 didn't invent elevated horror, but they perfected it. Over the last decade, this indie studio has become synonymous with intelligent scares, films that understand that the epicest horror isn't about jump scares and blood. It's about atmosphere. It's about dread. It's about stories that crawl under your skin and stay there. From Icelandic folktales to Puritan nightmares, from daylit Swedish cults to cursed family lines, we're counting down the 10 A24 horror films that defined a generation. These are the films that critics adored and audiences debated. Ready? Let's go. At number 10, we have Lumby, a film that earns its place not through spectacle, but through sheer singular atmosphere. Director Valdemar Johansson's debut is deceptively simple. A couple on an isolated Icelandic farm, a mysterious newborn. Johansson blends pastoral silence with Scandinavian folk mythology, crafting something that feels utterly uncanny without relying on conventional scares. Noomi Rapace leads what's essentially a near-wordless film where landscape and quiet replace violence. The film's atmosphere is so suffocating that it earned an 86% on Rotten Tomatoes and critical acclaim so strong that Iceland submitted Lamb as its official entry for Best International Feature at the Academy Awards. This is folk horror at its most refined. At number 9, Pearl, the audacious prequel that proves lightning can strike twice. Ty West and Mia Goth reunited after XX, and this time Goth co-wrote the screenplay itself, crafting her character's villain origin story alongside West. The 1918 setting is deliberate. A farm. A woman. A woman. The Spanish flu trapping Pearl in an isolation that fuels her psychological descent into madness. The film deliberately mimics the saturated palette of classic Technicolor Hollywood melodramas, all vivid, almost sickly colors that mirror Pearl's deteriorating mental state. Critics awarded it 92% on Rotten Tomatoes, though Metacritic placed it just outside the A24 horror canon at 76. But RT's embrace is telling. This is a film that understands style-esque terror. At number 8, Trey Schultz's It Comes at Night, a masterclass in atmospheric dread where the real horror is what you can't see. The premise is stripped bare, a post-collapse world, a family, a threat of unknown nature. And Schultz? He withholds the nature of that threat entirely. No answers. No jump scares. Just mounting paranoia, eating relationships from the inside out. Joel Edgerton anchors a lean ensemble cast navigating survival and distrust in a world where safety is the only illusion. Critics praised its restraint and psychological precision at 88% RT and 78 MC. Some audiences felt misled by marketing that promised more conventional horror. But that's the point. It Comes at Night 1 understands that the scariest threat isn't the monster. It's what we imagine is waiting in the dark. At number 7, Ty West's XXS, a loving, meticulous homage to 1970s grindhouse slasher cinema that earns the strongest Metacritic score of the genre exercise tier. West filmed XX and its prequel, Pearl, back-to-back on the same location, creating a conceptual universe that doubles as a meditation on aging, ambition, and exploitation. The kicker? Mia Goth plays dual roles, both the film's ingenue hero and the elderly villain hunting her across the property. That commitment to craft earned XX a remarkable 94% on Rotten Tomatoes and 79 on Metacritic. This is Ty West, proving that a well-constructed slasher, shot with intelligence and care, can satisfy both critics and fans who crave genuine horror cinema. At number 6, Talk to Mech, A24's highest-rated horror film on Rotten Tomatoes, a visceral possession film that delivers relentless, modern energy. The Philippou brothers, known for their provocative Raka Raka YouTube channel, directed this film, bringing YouTube's frenetic pacing and visual audacity to feature horror. The film's central prop, an embalmed ceramic hand, became instantly iconic. Touch it, whisper to it. Something answers. Something inhabits. Talk to Meg holds the highest Rotten Tomatoes score in this entire ranking at 97%. It's relentless. It's modern. It understands that Gen Z horror demands speed, viscerality, and no apologies. At 97% RT and 72 MC, this is a film that critics nearly unanimously embraced, a rare agreement in a genre built on disagreement. At number 5, Ari Aster's Midsommar, the film that proved folk horror doesn't need darkness to be absolutely terrifying. Most horror films hide their evil in shadow. Midsommar hides it in daylight. The film's terrors unfold almost entirely under a blazing Swedish sun, which makes every ritual, every smile, every act of violence feel obscene and exposed. Ari Aster described the film as a breakup movie, disguised as folk horror, a film about grief, abandonment, and the false comfort of belonging to something. Florence Pugh's emotionally raw performance grounds the film's chaos, earning widespread praise as the film's emotional core. At 83% on RT and 72 on MC, Midsommar remains the defining work of daylit dread, a landmark that redefined what folk horror could be. At number 4, Rose Glass's Saint Maud, a feature debut so assured, so oppressive, that it immediately announced a major filmmaking talent. Rose Glass's directorial debut turns religious devotion into a vehicle for both comfort and horror. Morpheed Clark delivers a committed, deeply unsettling performance that anchors the film's psychological descent into obsession and delusion. The oppression is relentless. This isn't jump-scare horror. It's the slow suffocation of a person losing grip on reality, while wrapped in the language of faith and redemption. Critics embraced Saint Maud at 92% on RT and an exceptional 83 on MC, the highest Metacritic score in the 83 cluster alongside The Lighthouse and The Witchy. Rose Glass's control is absolute. This is horror as psychological inevitability. At number 3, Robert Eggers's The Lighthouse, a claustrophobic, black-and-white descent into madness that represents A24 atmospheric horror at its most extreme. Eggers doesn't film this in conventional widescreen. He uses a nearly square 1.195 days to 71 aspect ratio, evoking early photography and early cinema, a choice that makes the frame itself feel suffocating and inescapable. The black and white panchromatic photography gives the film a timeless, almost nautical claustrophobia. Two men, one lighthouse. Isolation that breeds paranoia, desire, and rage. Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe deliver career-defining clever performances in this intense two-hander. Critics awarded The Lighthouse 90% on RT and 83 on MC. This is Eggers' second feature, and it announces a director in total command of visual language. At number 2, Robert Eggers' The Witch, the film that birthed A24's elevated horror identity and suffused the entire studio's approach with Puritan period atmosphere. Robert Eggers sourced much of the dialogue from authentic 17th century Puritan diaries. This isn't Hollywood Puritanism. This is real language, real theology, real paranoia from the historical record itself. The goat, Black Phillip, became one of modern horror's most iconic antagonists, not through spectacle, but through presence. The Witch was Eggers' debut feature, premiering at Sundance to widespread critical acclaim. Critics awarded it 91% on RT and 83 on MC. This film defined what elevated horror could be: intelligent, historically grounded, terrifying through authenticity rather than despite it. The Witch launched Eggers and changed A24's entire identity forever. At number 1, Ari Aster's Hereditary, the highest Metacritic score of any A24 horror film, and the movie that cemented elevated horror in mainstream consciousness forever. Hereditary marked Ari Aster's feature directorial debut, and it immediately established him as a major voice in horror cinema. Toni Collette's performance is widely considered one of horror's finest in decades. Steadage, she earned an Oscar nomination. The role demanded everything: raw grief, maternal terror, supernatural dread, and Collette delivers a career-best performance that haunts. The film roots its supernatural terror in the psychology of familial grief. This isn't a haunted house movie, it's a family curse movie. It's about inheritance, both genetic and traumatic. Hereditary earned 90% on RT and 87 on MC, the highest Metacritic score in this entire countdown. This is the film that proved elevated horror wasn't niche, it was everything. What these 10 films reveal is simple. A24 didn't invent the horror film, but they perfected the intelligent one. From Iceland to Sweden to Connecticut to the British coast, from Puritan paranoia to family curses to folk rituals unfolding in daylight, these films share a philosophy. Terror lives in restraint, in atmosphere. In what remains is unsaid. The critical consensus is overwhelming. These are films that audiences felt, rather than merely watched. They're ranked here by critical reception and atmospheric impact. The metrics that matter most in a form where dread is the entire point. And that's the top 10 A24 horror movies. If you enjoyed this countdown, subscribe to RankLens for more.